There's an obvious, striking, and more importantly, there's an obvious comparison between two humans currently now. Well-protected men. Near infinite awareness. Mr. President Joe Biden. Mr. Donald Trump, who debated and both ran for an election now. And Mr. Former President Donald Trump was said by many as a racist, psychologically unfit President of the United States of America. And setting aside arguments for duality and involving non-duality, there's also Mr. President Joe Biden, who has a publicly disclosed information about his medical difficulty with brain aneurysms previously. Now, and I have a mother, who had a brain aneurysm hemorrhage. Who I don't know as well anymore now. Who's much different than the mom I had when I was little and older in college. But Joe Biden, Mr. President Joe Biden, succeeded in his treatment and has now achieved an office of presidency in the United States of America. And what's an obvious comparison has to do with so much attention and awareness involving psychology and the amount of freedom Mr. Joe Biden has to go slow. And to not be interrupted when he's doing stuff now. Talking, explaining, and thinking now. And I remember Dr. Ben Carson, who in the Mr. Former Trump administration, the Mr. Former President Donald Trump administration, said he wasn't a racist, who was a retired, saying he wasn't a racist, pediatric neurosurgeon. And African American, Black, American. And Mr. President Joe Biden now uses words, gesture, posture, and dominance. And nobody stops and pauses to consider how much a president of the United States of America does. The nuclear missiles, the submarines and their tridents, airplanes and their bombs, economics, and parts and processes in a system of financial necessary dollars and cents, not only during a coronavirus pandemic, not only during a crisis, but since humans in North America, indigenous or not, primitive and primal, tribal, or else, or those other people now decided to begin a government to help inhabitants not struggle with bullies, slave owners, and aggression from other parts in North America now. And everybody goes about their day, their night, their week, their year. The first 60 days of Mr. President Joe Biden's term similar to Mr. Jay Inslee, who's governor of Washington State now, passively saying there's lockdowns. People at home and wearing a mask in an interview. It's almost as if people, folks, and humans learned about behavior, ego, and self, and mind, studied some neurolinguistics to have some language benefits, took a break to analyze visual neuroscience, eye contact, pupil dilation, and then made some tests to find out when the hormones were disruptive. And after they were done with their work, decided as long as a person acknowledges culture, ethnicity, dialect, race, and allows immigration unbothered, they're a candidate and indeed the elected president of the United States of America. In a democracy of the people deciding on the limits and the rules and expectations for the good of their children and the families and those they serve quietly and often silently. Proclaiming theory and philosophy and doctorates and PhDs and surgical hands as dominance now. Unless there's timing involved, talking about current Mr. President Joe Biden, in conversations with leaders in other parts of world, where there's speed, genius, brilliant, mystery, and deadly armies. Now, there's a distinct disadvantage to have dominance, physically and verbally, talking about topics such as climate change, Taiwan, and the Arctic now. And no matter how emotional and fearful my body gets, and how twisted my brain goes in lockdown, unnecessary and irrelevant to world outside my apartment, I can't help but plead and beg, not only for my life and staying alive, and those babies and those children, but anyone who's seen and read about medicine, and how many doctors and neurologists and psychologists and medical workers there are on an object in outer space. And how all of this information in this video now has already inevitably been learned and studied by those countries and those states and those places and those locations where women don't have a right to have no gender. Men have no tolerance for homosexuality. And feminism and activism are considered treason. Now,